Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and start. And I see some of my favorite people are actually tuning in, so thank you very much. I'm Marianne, and I am the director at the Coast Keeper Garden. And today we are going to talk about my very, very most favorite plant in the world, and that is succulents. Succulents are such a great, great landscape accent for your yard. The best part about them is they're super, super easy. They're great for people that don't want to spend a lot of time in the garden. They're great for you that forget to water. They're great if you go on vacation. They're just really, really easy. They're also super environmentally friendly. They don't take a lot of water. They don't take any fertilizer. They don't require pesticides. You're keeping the waterways clean. You're using less water. They're just completely environmentally friendly. They provide blooms for all the pollinators, the bees, the hummingbirds. They're just a fabulous plant. I had to laugh because when I named this workshop, growing and maintaining succulents, I thought to myself, there really is no maintenance, and that is so true. Really, the only thing you can do that I always tell people to kill a succulent is to overwater. I think a lot of people naturally think that plants need water like once a week on a regular schedule, and succulents just don't need that. I have lots of succulents in my yard, and over the winter time, I don't water them at all. They just don't need it. The only time I really feel impelled to water my succulents are when it's super, super hot out. I know at the Coast Keeper Garden, when it gets above maybe 85 or 90, I always go around and I give all the succulents an extra drink just because it's so hot out. But in general, succulents store a lot of water in their leaves. So one of the reasons why you often see succulents in hot, hot environments is because they can live off the moisture that's in their leaves. Succulents are actually in the cacti family, but succulents are a different stream or a different type of plant than cactus, but they are somewhat botanically related. But cactus look entirely different than succulents. Oftentimes when people talk about a water-wise yard, they envision all these thorny, spiny cactuses, and succulents are not like that at all. Succulents give you a really warm, beautiful look, and you can incorporate succulents with other water-wise plants. So since they have the same water requirements, in my yard, which you can see behind me, I have water-wise plants and I have succulents growing side by side, and they do wonderfully together. So succulents are a really fun plant, and especially if you have kids, succulents are really, really neat. Succulents are super easy to plant, and kids can easily handle them, plant them, propagate them. So it's a really fun family thing to do. What I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you some really simple succulents if you want to get started. These are succulents that I first started with. And succulents are really called the gift that goes on giving. And what that means is that when you plant a succulent, that succulent will double, quadruple, and pretty soon you will have a monster plant. And what you can do is you can actually clip off limbs of that succulent, and you can create new plants for yourself, or you can give them away to friends. At the Coast Keeper Garden, we have a group that's called the Plant Share. And once a month, everybody comes with all of these succulent clippings. And in fact, that's how I initially started with a lot of my succulents, was just clippings that I received at the Plant Share for free. So it's really a great way to try a lot of neat new succulents. So let me share with you a couple of really easy, cool succulents that are great for kids and great for getting started. One of the most easy types of succulent to grow is anything that's in the jade family. This particular jade that I have here is called coral jade. And this is really fun for kids because this basically looks like a coral that you would see in the ocean. So what you can do is you can have your kids plant their succulents and create an ocean-themed succulent arrangement. So I recommend anything that's labeled jade. And again, when you go to buy succulents, they'll all come labeled. And on here somewhere it'll say, yeah, this is called coral jade. So it says jade right on the tag. But watch out. Once you plant a jade plant, you will have a huge, this will get to be, I had one in my patio that was about 4 feet tall. So this is a plant that you can give away to other people, or you can create more and more planters of your own. So this is a really great plant to start with. Another plant that I really, really like is this plant. This is really, really neat. And they call this Panda Plant. And I believe the reason they call it is because the leaves are circled like a panda's eyes. And it's really fun for kids because it's fuzzy. It's really a neat plant, and it actually blooms. If you look here behind me, this is a Panda Plant bloom. And kids love it because it's fuzzy and it's just really fun. Another really great plant that's fun for kids is this plant here. It's called pork and beans. And the reason why it's called that is because the little succulents look like beans. This one is green right now because it's been in the shade. But this succulent, like a lot of other succulents, once it gets in the hot sun, it'll change color. And this will change to a bright red. Succulents oftentimes need sun to come to their full fruition of color. What they call it is they call it stressing a succulent. And what that means is that you give the succulent a little bit of extra sunlight, and that causes the succulent to become a brilliant color. Most often red, purple, a darker color. But this plant looks great even when it's not stressed or even when it's not red. Another great plant that grows everywhere that's really great are plants that are in the Senecio family. And this is called purple fingers or blue fingers. And kids like this because it's got lots of little fingers coming out. And again, it looks like something you'd see growing in the ocean or in the ocean. So you can use this for your ocean-themed planter. And some succulents really surprise you. This is called Boboli, and this doesn't really look like a succulent. A lot of people, when they see this at the Coast Keeper Garden, they don't even realize it's a succulent. But it is a succulent. And what's neat is it grows these beautiful flowers that look just like, almost like a wildflower. This is a great plant because as it gets bigger, again, you can separate it and you'll end up with many, many, many plants. So what you can do with your kids at home, or even what I do when I want to go out and garden and de-stress, you can get any kind of container. Make sure your container has drainage in the bottom. You can plant succulents in containers without drainage if you want to use them indoors, but just realize that it's kind of a temporary arrangement, that you can probably have them indoors for a couple months without drainage, but eventually you'll need to take them out of that pot and bring them outside and put them in something that has drainage for them to really look good. This pot has a hole in the bottom, so I know it's fine. And you're going to want to use soil that's marked succulent soil. In fact, if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, it's actually marked palm and cactus soil. And what's special about it is it has a lot of perlite in it. And perlite are these little white things that you see in the soil. And what they do is they allow the water to flow through the soil quickly, so the soil does not stay wet and soggy. Cactus and succulents do not do well in heavy clay soil. So if you plant one in your backyard and your soil is primarily heavy and clayish, you'll need to amend the soil in your ground as well as if you plant in a pot. So you can fill a pot up like this for your kids, and then if you buy a variety of succulents, one of the things that you want to tell your kids or even for yourself, when you do a succulent arrangement, you always want to have a thriller, a filler, and a spiller. So your thriller plant should be like your main attraction of the show. So my thriller plant would be this Panda Plant. And then for my filler, I most likely will use some of this pork and beans. And then for my spiller, I'm going to use this plant. And there's a whole variety of plants like this. The common name for these are strings of bananas because they grow long and they cascade over your pot. And the succulents look like little bananas. They grow up like crazy. I have these growing all over my yard, and it's a really great plant that you can grow easily, and it gives your pots a really great look because something is spilling over. So when you plant your plant, what's really great about succulents is that you can treat them differently than other plants. When you bring a succulent home, you can bring it home like this. And this is pretty big for this pot. I probably won't plant this whole thing in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the soil. And I'm going to grab my clippers, and be sure you have a really nice pair of clippers, because if I can get these open, one of the things that, oh, there we go. One of the things that you're going to need are some clippers, because this is too big for this pot and I want to make more of these plants. So I'm just going to get in here and I'm just going to snip some of these off. And every single one of these that I snip off, I can plant in another plant, in another planter. So I'm going to just snip a few of these off. All right, that's about the right size. So I'm going to take my thriller plant and I'm going to put it in the pot. This is the front of my pot. So I'm going to put it a little bit back from the front, like that. And kids can easily do this. Just have them push down on the soil. And then for a filler, you can actually use any of these succulents as a filler. For example, for my filler, I'm going to use some of these pork and beans. And again, they come with lots of soil. I always save the soil because you can reuse it. I'm taking the soil off because I already have my own soil in the pot. But again, if this is too big, you just take your clippers and you can clip these off, and you can use these in other arrangements. So I'm going to clip a few off like that. And then I'm actually going to use these. What you can do is remove a few of these little pods, or little leaves as they're called, from the bottom. And now I have a bare stem. And I'm going to take that stem and I'm just going to stick it in the pot like that. And what kids love to do, all of these leaves that come off of your succulents will actually grow into a new plant. You can get some little containers that look like this and fill them with soil. And you can take any succulent leaf and simply lay it on top of the soil and put this in a shady spot. And if you have lots and lots of patience, all of these succulent leaves will grow into new plants. For this to happen takes probably, you'll see them start to sprout in about, maybe 6 weeks. But to grow into an actual new plant probably takes anywhere, depending on the succulent, from 6 months to a year. But it's really fun for kids because they can watch the whole process of the succulent leaf sprouting. And the next thing that happens is it gets roots, and the roots go in the soil, and then eventually you'll get more growth. I've done it before, and it's a really fun thing to do with kids. So as these fall off, when you're making your arrangement, keep them, and you can actually grow new plants with them. Sometimes when I have them extra and I don't want to use pots like this, I just go to a spot in my yard where I'm growing succulents, and I kind of lightly sprinkle them on the ground and just ignore them. And oftentimes I'll go back 3 or 4 months later and there'll be a new plant. So it's a really fun way to propagate succulents. They're really easy. So after you get all that in, then you want to do what's called a spiller. And your spiller, like I said, your spiller is always going to hang down over the side of your pot. So again, I'm going to take all the soil off of this. Now, if I didn't already have soil in my pot, I could loosen up this soil and use it. But like I said, I have soil in my pot. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to actually, this kind of stuff you can just pull off. And believe it or not, if you stick this in soil, it'll grow. And then you can just take this and you can just tuck it in. And, you know, succulents seem to grow better and do better when they're close. I always laugh because succulents seem like they really like their friends, because for some reason, when you plant a group of succulents together, they all seem to grow better. When I plant a succulent just singular in a pot, it grows, but it just doesn't look the same. So remember, succulents always like friends. So I try to put at least 3 different types in each pot. Anyhow, once you get your succulents in, then your kids can come along and rearrange better and, you know, stick more things in here. But you get the general idea. Just remember, you always want a thriller, a filler, and a spiller. Now, one thing I didn't talk about, which is really great, is there's a type of succulent called Sedum. And it's almost grass-like, and it grows very, very low, and it's a wonderful, wonderful filler. You can also just plant this in your yard and it will grow like a ground cover. Oftentimes you see sedum in rock gardens or between stepping stones. It's a really great plant, and it comes, see this one, I don't know if you can see, but it's got pink and it has green on it. So it has a whole, they come in a whole variety of colors. So when you're shopping at the nursery, and oftentimes you can get sedum in an actual tray, like a great big, 4x4 tray, and then you just cut it out or pull it out and stick it in your planters and stick it in the ground. Let's see. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you is, and you can do another thing you can do with your kids. This is, I'm going to pull this over here. This is a planter that I planted, maybe 6 months ago. And as you can see, it's just bursting at the seams. So this is a good example of what I would do about making this look better, and also having plants to share with friends or having plants to put in my yard. So you don't be afraid of the succulents. Just get in here, and basically you can't hurt them. Just cut. I'm going to cut all these off. This is a type of jade that grows like crazy. So again, you just cut all these off. And then when you want to replant this plant, just pull, I always pull a few of these off to create a stem. And then you just take this and you stick it in your pot. Succulents do not need roots. That's one thing people sometimes get confused about, is that succulents don't need roots. You can just stick them right into the soil. I could talk for succulents probably for 2 hours, but this gives you a general overview of things you can do with kids. If you go on the internet, there's just a plethora of information about succulents. And hopefully when the Coast Keeper Garden reopens, you can come and you can see all the great succulents that we have growing there. I love to answer questions. So if you have any succulent related questions, you can reach me on the email. It's super easy. It's garden@coastkeeper.org. And thank you very much for tuning in, and happy succulent planting.